Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join this live stream before I get started. While we wait, I want to encourage people to follow me on Twitter at New Pos Blog and also to follow me on Facebook at New Possibilities. And if you are into reading great books by Black authors, I want to encourage you to follow our book club. And that book club is entitled Reading as Activism. If you go on Facebook, you can search for Reading as Activism. Like the page, we discuss a different book each month on the last Saturday of each month. And this Saturday, well, not this coming Saturday, but this month, we will be discussing this book by S.A. Cosby entitled Blacktop Wasteland. It's a thriller, so I encourage you all to join the book club and to read the book so that we can discuss it. We have a great discussion. The last time we had like 40-something people on our Zoom. It was a great, engaging discussion. So again, Reading as Activism on Facebook, like New Possibilities on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter at New Pos Blog. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There are a couple of stories that I saw about Donald Trump that I decided, hey, I need to bring this discussion to Facebook. These stories are too important to ignore. And they just reestablished what I've been saying for the longest time. Donald Trump is trash and Donald Trump must go. And I don't understand how any rational Black person could support Donald Trump at this point. So I'm going to share my screen right now and show you these two articles. So this first article is about Donald Trump and this coronavirus. And basically, he admits that he knew about how deadly the virus is. But instead of speaking the truth to the American people, this man intentionally misled Americans about this virus. And because of that, people are dead. At a time, this man knew how contagious this virus was, but yet he was telling people not to wear masks, through his conduct, by not wearing a mask himself, by having events, basically making masks optional. This man risked people's lives. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from this particular article. And all these revelations have come to the public's attention because Bob Woodward has, has a book called Rage about Donald Trump. And this man sat with Donald Trump and did many, interviews. He recorded a lot of the conversations. And a lot of controversial things are coming out because of this book. And also there are a couple of other books out right now that are stirring controversy as well. Donald Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, has a book as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But this is what President Trump was told. This article says, this will be the biggest national security threat you face in your presidency. That's what a national security advisor told Donald Trump. This is going to be the roughest thing you face. And then, it talks about how one of his national security advisors told the president, after reaching contacts in China, that it was evident that the world faced a health emergency on par with the flu pandemic of 1918, which killed an estimated 50 million people worldwide. And this article goes on to say 10 days later, Trump called Woodward and revealed that he thought the situation was far more dire than what he had been saying publicly. He said, "You can't breathe the air." And that's how it's passed. And that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than even your strenuous flus. This is deadly stuff. This is what President Trump was saying. But at the time when he was making these statements to Bob Woodward, he was telling the American people something else. It says that, this article says that at the time, Trump was telling the nation that the virus was no worse than a seasonal flu, predicting that it would soon disappear, and insisting that the US government had it totally under control. And it goes on to say that it would take several weeks before he would publicly acknowledge that the virus was no ordinary flu and that it could be transmitted through the air. And Donald Trump admitted to Woodward this. He said, "I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down because I don't want to create a panic." That's what Donald Trump said. So he's telling people, suggesting that people don't need to wear masks. He's saying it's going to just magically disappear. He was talking about it would be gone by in time for Easter and all that kind of stuff. And it would go away with the summer. But here we are, over 180,000 people dead. And this man was pretending like this thing was no threat. And he had a lot of gullible people believe in him. These mega people, these Make America Great Again people are running around here believing his nonsense. They attended rallies with hundreds of people and where a lot of the people were not wearing masks. And one of those people was Herman Cain. And we saw what happened to him. He ended up catching the coronavirus and he ended up dying because of it. His blood is on Donald Trump's hands. And I'm sure that there are many other people who have died because they listened to this man downplay this virus. You have these Trump buffoons running around here making it seem as if it's a bad thing to wear a mask. And I remember Donald Trump was shaming Biden for wearing a mask, when Donald Trump knows how deadly this virus is. But all the while, he's downplaying the nature of this virus. And, that just shows a complete lack of leadership. That shows a complete lack of concern for the American people. That shows you how self-absorbed this man is, how much he has no empathy for the American people, no concern for the American people. His primary concern is maintaining his position as president of the United States. And I think that that's disgraceful. And that's another reason why this man is garbage. That's another reason why he's complete trash and why he needs to go. Thousands of people have lost their lives. Over 180,000 people are dead, and they're predicting that far more people will die because of this virus. But this man downplayed things. He didn't take aggressive action when he should have. He should have mandated. So, instead of just making social distancing and wearing masks a recommendation, he could have mandated that federally. And that could have done more to stem the outbreak of this deadly virus, instead of just leaving it up to the governors of various states. because you have these governors who are following this man's example and had opened up things too early, and because of that, you had a lot of people get sick with this virus. A lot of people died from this virus. So just based on how he handled this whole situation with this coronavirus, it's just an example of his poor leadership. It's an example of a failure of leadership. It's an example of how little he cares for the American people. And because of that, people need to vote him out. It's just that simple. And that's why these elections matter. We literally need to vote, as many people said, as if our lives depend on it, because our lives literally do depend on it. So I'm going to show you all this other article, but before I do so, I just want to go to your comments. So Covina Man said that he still has supporters claiming it's a hoax. And he has his talking heads saying, don't believe your own ears. So I will post this article and you will actually hear Donald Trump saying these things. You will hear him say it. And then you got these people over there at Fox News and stuff trying to spin this and, rationalize what the president said. There is no rationalization of this failure to disclose to the American people how deadly this virus is. There is no excuse for this. None at all. Yeah, and then also there have been some stories about Donald Trump and the troops, and I'm going to share that too. I'm glad that Elaine made that point. So let me try to pull that up briefly. Just hold on for a second, everybody, because that's another example of why this man is trash. So I'm going to pull that article up. Yeah, there's another article I just saw that I'm going to talk about as well, about how he's using these evangelicals and playing them out like suckers, and they're too gullible to realize it. Just bear with me a second. I'm going to pull up this article. So here it is right here. Let me share my screen. So you had this article from the Atlantic. And it basically talks about how Donald Trump disrespected the troops. And this is not the first time he disrespected troops. Like, he's disrespected John McCain. He was talking about how John McCain was some kind of war hero because he got captured and he was a prisoner of war. And he basically said, well, I like people who weren't captured. And he said that, John McCain was not a war hero. That's how he described somebody who fought in the war, in the Vietnam War, and was captured, a prisoner of war. He said he's not a hero. But Donald Trump, while he condemned John McCain, Donald Trump didn't even have the courage to serve in the war. And, I don't think that the Vietnam War was a just war. I can understand why people decided to dodge the draft and all that kind of stuff and oppose the war. But you can't attack soldiers when you ran away from the opportunity to serve. You can't bash soldiers for being quote unquote losers and you didn't even have the courage to serve in the armed forces. And, he referred to John, he said this about John McCain. He said, we're not going to support that loser's funeral. So I'm going to get to these quotes about the troops. This article goes on to say that Trump's understanding of heroism has not evolved since he became president. According to sources with knowledge of the president's views, he seemed genuinely not to understand why Americans treat former prisoners of war with respect, nor does he understand why pilots who were shot down in combat are honored by the military. And it says, on at least 2 occasions since becoming president, according to 3 sources with direct knowledge of his views, Trump referred to former President George H.W. Bush as a loser for being shot down by the Japanese as a Navy pilot in World War II. World War II. So let me just go a little further into this article. It says that Trump finds the notion of military service difficult to understand and the idea of volunteering to serve especially incomprehensible. But yet this same president uses the military in his political ads. In all his television ads, he has all these pictures where he's posing with the military, saluting the military and all that stuff. But behind closed doors, he has disrespectful things to say about military people. And I don't understand how anybody like hearing this stuff that's in the military or has loved ones in the military, I don't understand how they could support this man for president. So he talked about how he finds it difficult to understand why people will volunteer to serve. The article goes on to say that President Trump did not serve in the military. He received a medical deferment from the draft because of the alleged presence of bone spurs in his feet. Okay. And, from some reports, they were saying that those were bogus claims about bone spurs and all that kind of stuff. So it talks about a visit that he made to Arlington Cemetery. So this is what he was at Arlington Cemetery. And, you see all those grave sites of people that passed away at Arlington. And he said, this is what Trump asked about. He said, I don't get it. What was in it for them? He's talking about the military, these people who gave up their lives for this country, fighting for this country. He said, I don't get it. What was in it for them? That's a statement that he makes at a cemetery for people that died in America's wars. And somebody said this about Trump. They said he can't fathom the idea of doing something for someone other than themselves, than himself. And it goes on to say he just thinks that anyone who does anything when there's no direct personal gain to be had is a sucker. Just bear with me a second. It goes on to say that the president believes that nothing is worth doing without a promise of a monetary payback. And intelligent people who don't pursue riches are losers. Yeah, it says that, one officer with firsthand knowledge of Trump's views said he has a lot of fear. He doesn't see the heroism in fighting. Yeah, so there you have it. Like basically, this man is saying that people who die for in wars for America, are losers and suckers and all that kind of stuff. But this is the man who has no problem doing all these military ads. This is the man that has no problem sending, people's children in harm's way in these wars. But yet he has no respect for the military. So I'm going to show you this one other. I'm going to show you a couple of other stories real quick about Donald Trump. I'm going to start with this one. This is from the Greek. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. So this article talks about Bob Woodward's latest book, Rage. And it has, again, Bob Woodward recorded hours of conversation with various people, including the president. And this article from the Griot says in one interview audio clip that was released to the Washington Post, Woodward asked Trump about the existence of white privilege and explained to the president that they were both white men with privileged upbringings. Woodward's father was an attorney and later judge in Illinois. And Donald Trump's father was a real estate magnate. And, this was what Bob Woodward asked. He said, do you have any sense that that privilege has isolated or put you in a cave to a certain extent? Me and lots of white privileged people in a cave. We have to understand and work our way out of it. And then Trump says this, he says, no, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Just listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that way at all. And it says that interview took place on June 18th, the day before Juneteenth, and less than a month after the slaying of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And it says that Woodward continued to press the president to understand the struggle among African Americans after generations of discrimination and inequality. And it says the president refused to acquiesce. Instead, he continued to point to pre-pandemic unemployment rates for Blacks. So you have a situation where this man has no compassion or any concern at all for Black people. He's not even trying to get outside of his privileged bubble to even try to understand the plight of African Americans. And again, this is just another reminder that this man doesn't give a damn about Black people. And I don't understand why Black people, some ignorant Black people, continue to support this guy. I don't understand why you have people that are willing to sit on the sidelines during this election, when at least Joe Biden, has expressed concern about these issues. As I pointed out before, he has a platform on his website that addresses important issues pertaining to Black people. Unlike Donald Trump, when Jacob Blake was shot, Joe Biden went to see the family. And somebody could say, well, that's just politics or whatever, but he went to see the family. Donald Trump did not go see the family. Instead, he talked to law enforcement. And you have example after example of this. When it comes to this police brutality question, his own spokespeople, again, said that was just some local issue. Police brutality is just some local issue. It is not an issue for the federal government. This man doesn't have any compassion. He has no concern for the plight of Black people. And also, to make matters worse, his own attorney had some things to say about him. And I'm not even done yet. So I'm not going to show that article. There's another article where his attorney basically says that Donald Trump made racist statements about Black people. Also, his attorney, let's see, I think this is from his attorney. Yeah, his attorney also talked about Donald Trump and his view of these evangelicals. Like you see in this picture here, like these evangelicals and Negro coons and stuff like that had their hands on him. They're praying for him and all that kind of stuff. And the whole time behind their backs, he's mocking them, according to Donald Trump's attorney. It says he privately mocked evangelicals and called Christianity bullshit. But you won't hear, like, now that this has come out, like, I wonder what Pat Robertson has to say about this. He had a lot to say about Black Lives Matter, but what does he have to say about the president of the United States calling his religion bullshit? So let me just go through this article. This article goes, it says, in the book, Disloyal, a memoir, Cohen writes that before winning the presidency, Trump held a meeting at Trump Tower with prominent evangelical leaders where they laid their hands on him in prayer. And it says, afterwards, Trump allegedly said, can you believe that bullshit? Can you believe people believe that bullshit? And it goes on to say the cosmic joke was that Trump convinced a vast swath of working class white folks in the Midwest that cared about that he cared about their well-being. The truth was he couldn't care less. And it goes on to cite other examples of his despicable behavior. But that's Trump. That's why I say he's trash and Trump needs to go. And I don't understand why anybody would just sit on the sidelines where you have a president that doesn't even want to try to empathize or understand your plight. And the reason why this matters, it's not about like what he thinks just in and of itself. Those kind of thoughts manifest themselves in action. Like if somebody doesn't sympathize with your plight, they're not going to care about police brutality. If they don't sympathize with your plight, they will defend people like Kyle Rittenhouse. If they don't sympathize with your plight, they will talk about how those white racists in Charlottesville are some very fine people. And all this stuff translates into public policy. It translates into what kind of Department of Justice you will have. Following his lead, his Department of Justice Attorney General doesn't even believe that systemic racism exists in a police department. So all of these things matter. And again, Donald Trump must go. Like he doesn't have He pimps religious symbolism for his own political purpose. He has no respect for anybody but himself. Like he only cares about himself. He's a classical example of a narcissist in every sense of the word. And Donald Trump, for that reason, must go. And I don't know like what more it will take for people to realize just what is at stake in this election. But yeah, I just wanted to share that information with you. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to look at your comments before I close out this live stream, and I'm going to come back up with one more live stream. So let's see what folks are saying. Yeah, so Covina Man said the whole country would change for the better with Trump's defeat on election day / week. Yeah, yeah, it will be. And it's like what I've been thinking is like if after all of this, after all these revelations, if the American people still vote for this guy, then they are going to get what they deserve. They are really going to get what they deserve. Like at this point, with all this stuff coming out, like it should be clear that he is not fit to be president. But this should have been clear the last go around. Like when the tape came out with him disrespecting women, talking about grabbing them by their private parts and stuff like that. That should have been a wrap for his campaign. But here we are, he got elected. And we cannot take this election for granted. We need to get out there and vote like we never voted for before to ensure that this man doesn't get another 4 years. Yeah, and this is a good point, Elaine. Like, I don't know why people, like, if I was a president, like, I wouldn't open my doors to Bob Woodward and just have him recording me saying all kinds of stuff. And this happens time and time again. Like he does these books with every presidential administration. Like he had a book for George Bush. He had a book for the Clintons. Like he does this all the time. And I'm like, people should be hip to the game by now. Like, when it comes to Bob Woodward. And I don't understand why Donald Trump would just make all these confessions to this guy. And it's hard to refute things that he has said because these things have been recorded. He can't say, oh, I didn't say that, because Bob Woodward can just say, well, here's the audio. Check this out. Yeah, so Cookie Juice said evangelicals don't care about what Trump says or his morals, or as long as he institute laws that support their views and appoints conservative judges. Yeah, I think that's a great point, because if they cared about his morals, they wouldn't have voted for him in the first place. Just based on his personal conduct and everything, they wouldn't have voted for him. But they're willing to overlook all that stuff if he's willing to appoint the judges that they want to see on the bench. So yeah, I think that's a valid point. Yeah, we just can't relax like Cookie Juice is saying, man. We got to take this stuff seriously. I know that during the first, the 2016 election, people were like, oh, Hillary has this in the bag. Like, there's no way he's going to win. It's a wrap. And then we were all stunned on election day. You had all these experts and stuff like that saying, oh, Donald Trump is not going to win. The math is not in his favor. And here we are, almost 4 years into this administration. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a great evening.